Maddie, I kind of asked Spencer the same thing.
Okay.
When you look at the postseason, it kind of you add that team element to it.
Mm-hmm.
During the regular season, you're just kind of giving some marks, working on some things.
Yeah.
As you go into postseason, you're obviously trying to get your individual things done, but adding to a team.
Conference titles and stuff like that.
Just kind of talk about adding that aspect of it.
Yeah, I think that's always a little bit interesting because, early in the season, we talk about PRs and wins individually, and then towards this postseason, Coach Johnson emphasizes, just doing what you need to do to get your green uniform ahead of other uniforms, even if it's not your best time. It's less about your personal PR at that point and more about just how you can help the team. And obviously you still want to qualify for regionals, nationals and stuff like that, but it definitely becomes more focused on the team aspect of it. And I think it's also really interesting because, some of these later meets that we've had, we learn kind of, that not every meet's going to be a PR from last season because, early in the season we kind of expect those bigger jumps after a year of training. So now we're more focused on, just how to compete and how to figure out how to pass the person in front of you to get into finals and stuff like that.
So. Speaking of PRs and big jumps, you've had a pretty good year starting with the indoor season to now. What has changed for you this year, and why have these improvements been so dramatic this year?
I think in the weight throw, the main difference for me was kind of getting over the strength aspect of it and how heavy it is. Previous years I felt like the main focus that I had was, oh my God, this thing is heavy, and how do I get it to go far? And I think due to technical changes and just more experience lifting, I wasn't as focused on that part, so I could focus more on adding speed and other things like that to help it go far. That I wasn't able to focus on as much in the past. And then, I've been trying to translate some of that to hammer. I've seen some PRs, not as big of jumps, but I think my big jumps in the hammer were more last year, so it's kind of the weight throw was catching up, but still PR'd in both this year so far, and I hope to continue that into this postseason.
Is there any travel fatigue this late in the year with, school and being on the road constantly in flights? And do you guys feel it at this point?
I don't feel like travel fatigue necessarily, but it definitely has been a more stressful term than I feel like previous spring terms with missing more classes for travel and just, every week it's like, okay, what class am I missing this week? What homework do I need to do early? Versus previous years we had more like home meets or local where we didn't have to worry about that as much. But I'm thankfully a junior now, so I've gotten a little more experience with that and how to deal with that, and it hasn't been too hard.
Do you think that this women's team has the ability to win the Pac-12 and kind of reclaim your spot?
Yeah, I think if we really all show up and do what we have been doing all season and compete at that meet, like I said, do what we can to get our colors ahead of other teams, then I think we can definitely win it because we're all in a good spot. We've had a lot of good PRs later in the season. So it's definitely we're on the right track for that.
Do you score the meet before you go in? Do you look at the numbers, look at other teams?
I don't individually. I'm sure the coaches look into it a little bit, but I think, at the end of the day, if we just know that if we can come in and do what we do and have a good day across the board, then we'll have a good shot.
I know USC had such a great meet last year.
Mm-hmm.
How disappointing was it not to win, and did that kind of set a tone for this year at all?
I definitely think we're a little hungrier this year to win it. The boys won it last year, and I think the girls want to be up there with them and try to get the double back the way we had in previous years. So I definitely think that's driving people a little bit more to be competitive and not worry so much about their individual time or mark and more about, how they placed.
When you think about the throws group, sometimes it's either earlier in the meet, so you don't get a
Yep.
lot of people there, or you're outside of the actual facility.
Mm-hmm.
How important is it to have that dynamic between the group of you that are together most during
Yeah.
training and then at meets as well?
I think it's really important. We all cheer each other on. Like you said, most of the time we're not in the same direct venue or at a different time. I think that's kind of the same thing again this year. I believe the hammer is at 11 a.m. and no other events are until 5, and it's at a different field, so we kind of get the double. But I think it's early enough that, the throwers themselves, we all support each other, and there's kind of a different throws atmosphere out at those, lonely fields than what you have when we're throwing on the infield. So I think there's definitely a different energy when it's just the throws kind of isolated. But yeah, it's definitely nice to have the team there. I remember last year when I had a PR at Pac-12s, for the beginning part of the competition, there wasn't a whole lot of people there because, again, it was early in the morning. But once I got into finals, most of the team was showing up to start getting ready for their events, so there was a lot more people there, and that's when everyone saw big PRs in finals.
Do you look at it as an opportunity to set the tone for the day for the rest of the team?
Yeah, I think it is definitely a way to set the tone. I think our multi-event athletes also get to do that a little bit. It's a week in advance, but they still are setting the tone. So, Max Vollmer did a really good job of that this last weekend, coming out with the win, and a PR, which was nice. And then, yeah, I think the hammer, it's always hammer for the most part that's early, but hammer gets always a good opportunity to try to set the tone for the rest of the meet. But at the same time, if for some reason things don't go well, we have enough time, like you can reset it. You don't have to for me, I do 2 events. So if something goes bad on day 1, I have day 2,